Greetings, mathematicians. We have day 2 warm-up. Find the mean, median, mode, and range of the data. Okay. So the easiest way to do this: count how many data points you have, rearrange, and then go ahead and calculate all those points of interest. Okay. So let's count. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 data points. So n is equal to 8, and let's go ahead and rearrange from least to greatest. So you have 4, and 8, and then 12, followed by 40, 50, 69, 77, and then 100. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Awesome. So let's go ahead and calculate that mean, right? So mean, that just means take the sum of all those numbers and then divide by the total numbers that you have, right? So we're going to add up all these numbers here, and I get 360, and then divide by that number. So we have 8, right? So 360 divided by 8, the mean is 45. Okay. The median, that is just your middle number, right? Well, we have an even number, right? So it's actually going to be the average or the mean of those two numbers, right? So we can add those up and then divide by 2. Another way to think of this is what number is exactly between 40 and 50? 45, right? So then we need to find out what is the mode. There are no repeats, right? So there's no mode. And then the range, so take your biggest and then subtract off your smallest. So you have 100 minus 4. The range is 96. Okay, so looking at bar graphs. Bar graphs are used to compare and contrast data. One axis shows the subcategories, right? So on this axis down here, we see the scores. And then the other axis just shows how many of those scores do you see, right? So looking at this bar graph, we're looking at the scores on a basic math test. It looks like you can only get multiples of 10, right? So you get 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, or 100. And then along the y-axis, we have the number of students that got that score. So if I'm asking how many students received a 60%, well, I see that 4 students received a 60%. Okay? Example 6. So the bar graph below compares the lunch options available in the school cafeteria to the number sold during 1 week. How many items were sold in the cafeteria all together, right? So here is a bar graph of all the available items, right? So we have Caesar salad, taco wrap, sandwiches, soup, chicken burger, and then the daily special. All we need to do here is take all your items, right? 45, 80, 65, 75, 95, 115, and add them together, right? So just use your calculator, add them together, and we see that they sold 475 items. Okay, your turn number 1. What is the lowest temperature recorded for the year 2015? And then what is the average daily temperature for the week displayed on the bar graph for each year? Okay, so let's take a look at this bar graph. It shows the temperature in degree Fahrenheit, and the blue bars are for the year 2000, and the red bars are for the year 2015. So looking at the question again, what is the lowest temperature recorded for the year 2015? So we're interested in these red bars right here, right? And I'm looking for the lowest temperature. So the lowest temperature that I see in red is 60 degrees, right? So the lowest temperature for 2015, 60 degrees. 60 degrees. Next question, what is the average daily temperature for the week displayed on the bar graph for each year, right? So we have 7 days for each year, right? So to find the average or the mean, we need to add up all those numbers. So I'm going to talk you through it, right? So we have 57 plus 53 plus 66 plus 55 plus 70 plus 59 plus 68. And then we divide by 7, right? So for the year 2000, When I add those all together, I get a sum of 428. And then we have to divide by 7, right? So that is equal to 61.1 degrees, okay? For the year 2015, we're going to do the same thing. We need to add up all the red bars, so 64, 71, 62, 68, 70, 65, and 60. We add those together, and then we divide by 7. So we have 460 divided by 7, and that's equal to approximately 65.7 degrees. Looking at circle graphs. So circle graphs show the relationship of parts to a whole, right? So the whole pie is 100%, and then you can look at all the parts separately to see how they relate to each other, right? So here we're looking at pet ownership. We have a key over here, right? So the dogs, cats, fish, rabbits, and rodents. As you can see, dogs are clearly the biggest portion of the pie with that 55% ownership. So example 7, use the graph to solve. So we're looking at favorite pets. We see that almost every single pet has a corresponding number other than the hamster, right? So we don't know what percentage of people said hamsters were their favorite pets. In order to do so, we know that the whole pie is 100%. We're going to go ahead and add these all together. So the 20H, 22, 15, 13, and 12, right? So to figure out the hamster, we're going to take 100, and we're subtracting off that sum, right? So when I add together 28, 22, 15, 13, and 12, that gets me 90%, right? Meaning that hamsters account for 10% of the data, right? So I'm going to go ahead and fill in that 10%, and that's going to make answering these questions much easier. So question 1, which pet did the greatest number of people like? Just look for the biggest part of the pie. We see that fish is the biggest part. Okay? Number 2, which pet did the least amount of people say was their favorite? Well, hamster has the smallest pie. It is 10%, so hamsters are the least favorite. Number 3, what percent of people said the hamster was their favorite pet? Again, we already did that work, so we know it is 10%. Number 4, what percent of people preferred either the cat or the hamster? So the cat is 15%, the hamster is 10%. Add those together to get 25%. Number 5, which 2 pets did about half the people say was their favorite? So I'm looking for half the pie. Well, this line looks perfectly straight across, which is 50%. And I see that gerbils and fish are that 50%. So gerbil and fish. All right, your turn, number 2. So again, we have time spent on homework. We see that we have every single piece except for the English. So we need to calculate that piece. So take 100 and then subtract off the sum of the remaining pieces. And then you should see that 22% is English. Okay? So the most time was spent on which subject? We see social studies has the biggest piece. Number 7, the least time was spent on which subject? Sadly, it is math. Number 8, what percent of the time was spent working on English? So we have that 22%. Number 9, what is the combined amount of time spent on social studies and reading? Okay, so we're going to do social studies, which is 28%, and then plus reading, which is at 14%. 28 plus 14 gets me 42%. Okay. And then number 10, which 2 subjects accounted for about half the time spent? So again, I see 50% is right here. So So that is social studies and English, right? 28 plus 22 gets me 50. So we have social studies and English. Okay. Then we have line graphs. So line graphs are used to display continuous data. Usually we display time. It can be useful in predicting future events. The horizontal axis often shows time, and the vertical often shows the values that you are measuring, right? So here we have a line graph. It is showing magazine sales, right? So along the x-axis we have the days of the week. On the y-axis we have the number of magazines sold. So you can see it initially picks up in sales as the week goes on, and then on Friday, sadly, it drops again. So example 8, how many bars were sold on week 2? So we're just looking at how many bars were sold on week 2, track down week 2, we see that 30 bars were sold there. So 30 bars. Number 2, were more candy bars sold on week 1 or week 4? So week 1 we sold 10, week 4 we sold 40, so we know that we sold more bars on week 4. Number 3, what is the difference in the number of candy bars sold on week 6 and the number sold on week 1? Okay, so week 6 we sold 15 candy bars. So week 6 we sold 15 candy bars. Week 1 we sold 10 candy bars, right? So 15 minus 10, that is a difference of 5 candy bars. 5 candy bars. Okay. Number 4, what is the total number of candy bars sold? So what we need to do is take each week, right? So there's 10, 30, 5, 40, 20, and 15. Add them up, and that's going to be your answer. So for this one, we should sold 120 candy bars. And week 5, the goal was to sell 50. Was the goal reached? So we're just looking at week 5 total. Sadly, they did not reach it because they sold 20. So for number 5, they did not achieve their goal. So no. And your turn, number 3. What is the total number of bags recycled? So you can see we have cans recycled. So what is the total number? So again, we have to go through all the days, add them up. So 6 plus 18 plus 8 plus 12 plus 10 plus 16. And we get an answer of 70. So we have 70 bags. Number 2, which day had the greatest number of bags recycled? So we see that day 2 has that highest spike, so therefore it is day 2. We have day 2. I'm going to go ahead and knock that off. Number 3, which day had the fewest bags recycled? Well, day 1, right? Smallest number, so we have day 1. And then number 4, which day, from day 2 to day 3, did the amount of bags recycled increase or decrease? So we're starting at day 2, and we go down to day 3. So our answer is it decreased. Decreased.